Shefty tweeting this morning, a decision is expected today on whether Ben Roethlisberger will need elbow surgery per sources. Roethlisberger wants to avoid it at all costs, but ultimately doctors will decide whether that is possible. Dan Orlovsky, we talked about Drew Brees with a thumb. That's bad for a quarterback. An elbow, I can't imagine anything could be worse.
Yeah, it's equally as bad, right? And the reality is, okay, Ben, if there is something there with your elbow, are you able to play efficiently? Like, are you able to play and give our team chance to score points? Because you saw him on those two throws, the grimace of the elbow. And this is a team that is let's keep it real, is missing playmakers. So you add that to a quarterback that might not be full health, and you see him grab the elbow after throws. Like, I understand you might want to avoid surgery at all costs, but if you can't play and play well, you're not doing anything for a football team that needs some kind of help offensively.
Pat, the division is an interesting one. The Ravens, we've talked about them, how good they are. We'll see what the Browns are tonight. Are the Steelers in trouble this quickly into the season?
I think you have to say yes. And the reason is they bet everything on Ben Roethlisberger. They got rid of their two problems, they say, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. They said, listen, we're going to go in with Ben Roethlisberger. Brought his friend in to offensive coordinate, actually. So everything is being built around Ben Roethlisberger, a young nucleus. He's a tough guy. He gets hurt often. Normally we see him in the boot. I think that's a very standard look for Ben Roethlisberger. But the elbow is a whole different ballgame for a quarterback. Without Ben, you got to question whether or not the Steelers, will they win a game, Greeny? I'm just not sure.
So far, they haven't. In a game this non-competitive, there were actually a lot of messages, it feels like they were being sent. Do you think they were sending a message by getting AB as involved as they did, as quickly as they did?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the guy is a super talent. And so you saw him play a lot of split end. That way he doesn't have the motion, all those kind of things. But what I was impressed with, you know, obviously the way they started the game, featured him 3 catches. But also the red zone presence. He has the 1 touchdown catch in the red zone, but he also, as we're seeing the start of the game, but they also targeted him 3 other times in the red zone. So he could have easily had 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. So I know what Belichick's saying. Yeah, don't believe that. They wanted to start the game with him, and they wanted him to be in the red zone, be a factor in the red zone.
What message is he sending, Belichick, I mean, by also throwing the ball and trying to score late in the game when he's up 5 touchdowns?
Yeah, I never got that. It was like, hey, by the way, you're now the enemy. I think that's the message he sent. I would have loved to have seen when Miami called the timeout when they're down by 43. Go kick the field goal. Like, that, to me, would have been a classic. Everybody would have been like, all right, that way you don't get shut out.
What do you think of all of this? It was a strange day with messages being sent.
Well, I think the funny thing there was Tom Brady said, I'm just trying to throw to the open guy. Antonio Brown is known as the best receiver in football because he's always open. That is something that they can say, they can rely on. But getting him fed early and then not really looking at him later in the game was obviously a technique. They were trying to keep him involved, let him know he's a part of it.
And listen, if you watch the show, you know this is a big deal to me. The Dolphins have been outscored 102-10 in their first 2 games.
Tank, and I've never seen something like this. I was a part of the last team that was potentially sucking for luck. No players were doing it, but on the front office side, they were obviously trying to do it. 4 of our first 5 games were 1-score games. So at least we were giving the image to season ticket holders and people that bought jerseys that we were attempting to get into this. This Miami Dolphins team is just getting railroaded. Now, did they get better from week 1 to week 2? Yeah. I'd argue yes, because the first week they put up 50-some against them, this time only 40. But this Patriots team, we have no idea how great they are because the Dolphins team is so bad. But, man, if they're not trying to get Tua, it sure looks like they're attempting to suck as bad as they can.
Yeah, and I look at it this way. There's going to be competition for that pick. Because there's some bad football teams. But when you look at it, Pat, we said, they're getting better, man. 59 points to 43. Hey, we'll
16 points better, Greeny.
At some point, they may play someone this season within 4 touchdowns. Is it time right now for the Giants to go to Daniel Jones?
No. I think if they're going to go to Daniel Jones, it's going to be after the bye. It's too early to do it right now. Look, their problems are a lot bigger than just Eli Manning. Their problem is they can't stop anybody.
Right.
You know, going into that game, they'd given up 350 yards passing to their last 3 opponents. This one, they're going against, you know, Josh Allen. I'm like, he threw for 250 yards once in his career. I thought he would throw for over 250. He did.
Yeah.
This defense is horrendous. And so right now they got bigger issues. Look, their offensive line seems to be better. They have no receivers. And, you know, you got Saquon Barkley, who's one of the best players in the league. So that's all you have on this football team.
Their bye is after week 11. The bottom line, there's two different ways to look at it. One of them is it's not all Eli's fault. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
Right.
The other is this is a team that's going nowhere no matter who your quarterback is. When do you put the young kid on the field and let him start getting work?
I would say once you realize that you're no longer, and I know this sounds silly, but in playoff conversation, right? Like once you are mathematically or realistically out of the playoff conversation, you go, okay, now we're going to turn it over to Daniel Jones. And I've said this in the spring, Greeny. It's really delicate, though, at the same time, because that means that you as a general manager and head coach are officially 100% ending the Eli Manning era. And that is a burden that they're going to have to own. But I would imagine at some point looking back end of November, or back end of October, early November, you might be thinking about making a decision.
Draft night, this conversation had to happen, though. If we draft a quarterback now, if Eli struggles at all, the boo birds are going to come out in flocks. And that's exactly what happened last night or yesterday. As soon as Eli struggles a little bit, everybody's wondering what the kid from Duke that everybody hated whenever he was drafted, except for Rex Ryan, respect. But I can't wait to see what that is. I just don't know how you do that. They could have built the team up around Eli Manning. They chose to go with the future. Now it's like, when did they make the decision? They had to know this was potentially going to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.